It was very, very hard then. People couldn't actually even understand the concept of a disabled model. Like it hadn't even crossed their minds, which was like really shocking for us.
A lot of the times when people think about inclusion and they think about, oh, there's an inclusive campaign, usually there's like, first they looked at race and ethnicity, then they looked at body types and body sizes. And it seems like disability is like something that people cannot comprehend as like, it's actually everything is together.
We're not just talking about disabled consumers, we're also talking about wider society. So many people appreciate and feel a connection to brands that are inclusive. The newer generation, Gen Z, of course, they really appreciate the inclusive advertising, regardless as to whether they have a disability or not. It isn't hard. Speak to the community, do your market research, get it right, and then you won't be called out as tokenistic.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Purple Code podcast. I'm Carmen and today I'm joined by the amazing Laura Winson, CEO of Zebedee, which you've probably heard. They've got a documentary on Channel 4 and you've probably seen their talent and seen them around on social media a lot. But I'm very excited to have a conversation with you today, Laura. If you'd like to start just by introducing yourself a bit, kind of like your background.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks so much for having me today. Lovely to be working with you guys. So I'm co-founder and director at Zebedee. How did we get to starting Zebedee? So Zebedee was launched with myself and my sister-in-law Zoe, and I went to see Zoe one day, and we were just having a chat about the lack of representation in fashion and media and advertising, and this was back in 2017, and it's not very long ago, but 2017, it was so rare to see anybody with a disability represented in the media. And we were kind of just putting the world to rights and kind of saying how rubbish it was. And just for a bit of background, I'm a social worker by background. I was working with people who were experiencing first episode psychosis. Zoe's a performing arts teacher, working with people with learning disabilities. So we both knew a lot of people with disabilities, and we were talking about those people in particular and how they just there wasn't access to an agency or any opportunities. And so we kind of had a little bit of a light bulb moment. It was really, if nobody else is out there working as an agent to try and find opportunities for disabled people, then why don't we give it a go? Like at that point, we're on the beach, so we actually didn't even know if anybody else was out there doing that or what the environment looked like. We got back, Googled how to set up your own business, and basically just started from there. And we just knew from as soon as we had that conversation that we needed to do something about it, and we knew it was a really good idea, and we were just going to go full pelt and go for it. I was on maternity leave, so when my baby was sleeping, I had a bit of time to kind of work on it. Zoe was working part-time. We were both kind of quite lucky that our husbands are both working, so we knew that the mortgage would get paid if we focused, and I know a lot of people don't have that luxury, so we were quite lucky in that respect. And that's how we started, and then it's just gone from strength to strength, and we are where we are now, booking lots and lots of jobs every year and working with loads of brands. So
it's going great for you guys. How's kind of been the journey since 2017 to now? Obviously we've seen a lot of improvement in terms of inclusion, but how has it been from your perspective, seeing it from the inside?
Well, like I was saying, in 2017 it was so rare to see anyone with a disability represented. Even TV, the soaps, you just didn't see it at all. And when we first launched, I think we didn't have a Rolodex of contacts. We had never worked in fashion or media, so we kind of had to learn everything from scratch and work out who to contact. And we literally were ringing Marks and Spencer's customer service and asked to be put through to the model booker. We were just trying every avenue we could. And I think it was very, very hard then. People couldn't actually even understand the concept of a disabled model. It hadn't even crossed their minds, which was really shocking for us. So it was really, really hard, and we just had to keep knocking on doors and educating, informing, encouraging. And I'd like to say now that things are completely different, and like it's a whole different landscape, and everybody's being inclusive, but it just absolutely isn't the case still, and we still are knocking on doors, encouraging, advocating, persuading, doing everything we can to try and get people to understand the benefits of working with disabled people and the ethics and the values behind it, and just trying to do what we can to make the landscape improve.
Yeah, there are a few things now based on that I want to ask you. But from the documentary, which I loved, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
I'll ask you about the actual documentary later. But there was someone from a brand in the documentary that was talking about how the industry is actually very, very early stages of inclusion. Do you agree with that? Do you think, brands are still a bit, not sure how to approach inclusion and the benefits of it?
Yeah, 100%. Of course, there's some brands and some agencies who are doing it better than others. I think the thing is, like, so many people, they really do understand that it's the right thing to do. They understand that they should be doing it, but there's just barriers along the way, and there are so many barriers. It can come down to being uncomfortable about language, being worried about being called out as tokenistic, like these sort of like business concerns, like are we going to make money from this, like the fears. Like, I think people like to stick to what they've done for such a long time, and then they have the fear about doing anything different. I don't accept those reasons as excuses, but this is kind of what I'm thinking is like what is going on through people's minds. But then I think there is just still the case that there is discrimination out there. Like, people don't want to sometimes. And it really is a really hard conversation to have with people. And of course, they'll never say to us, no, I don't want to. Like, I'm not going to do it. There's various things that people will say, but there is this barrier, and we have to work really hard to try and educate people about, like, there is a huge business case. Of course, there is a huge human rights and ethics case. There's a creative case. Like, there's amazing campaigns and amazing work that can be done with disabled people. And we just have to keep educating, as you guys do.
Yeah.
As many people. Something that has changed, I think, is that there are many more people. Like, when we first launched, there wasn't many other people kind of shouting from the rooftops about this. But now I can see that many people, there is a voice now, a community voice, and many people, maybe it's social media, many people talking about this and advocating for it, and businesses even advocating for inclusion. So things are improving, but 100% they're not where they need to be.
Not at all. But yeah, I do think social media has played a big role. Obviously, you have such a variety of people that you can log in and see on Instagram, on TikTok, etc. And even, when I was a kid, I will see the size 0 type of models, and there's been that change since then. But I think a lot of the times when people think about inclusion and they think about, there's an inclusive campaign, usually there's like, first they looked at race and ethnicity, then they looked at body types and body sizes, and it seems like disability is like something that people cannot comprehend as like it's actually everything is together. How's your view like from the industry? Do you see that usually from brands, like they try to be inclusive but they don't like push to actually be truly inclusive?
Yeah, again, 100% agree with that. I could be, you sound like me. Like, I would definitely be saying that. I think, unfortunately, when we first launched, we would receive briefs looking for diversity. It would be very clear, diversity is key. We want diverse talent. So we'd be like, great, they're looking for diverse talent. Let's send our talent over. And then they'd come back saying, like, why have you sent us these talent? We haven't asked for disabled people. And it's like, well, you've asked for diversity, so this is this is diversity. But I mean, I don't know exactly what the stats are, but even behind the scenes, not even in front of the camera, but in companies, so many companies don't include disability in their DEI policies. It is like, we've always said, it's like the last thing that people think about when they're thinking about diversity. I honestly believe that is changing. Like I just talked about before, like the conversations that so many people seem to be having. I think people understand that inclusion and access are really, really important in terms of the diversity and inclusion landscape, and that is filtering into the, into media and advertising. But yeah, definitely disability isn't considered where it should be. And also we need to think about intersectionality as well, because like disabled people, that's not their only characteristic.
No.
Like if you are looking for true diversity, then we can think about ethnically diverse people. We can talk about body shape, body size, age, religion, gender and disability. Like there are so many intersections in society that can be represented in a campaign.
Yeah, 100%. And going back to when you were talking about the business case, how is it, because it's something that obviously we talk a lot about and we talk with clients about it. Can you talk a bit about, like, from your perspective, kind of like the business case of inclusion and in disability inclusion, and how have you seen it with brands that you've worked on?
Yeah, I mean, we always talk about the business case with our clients. So probably many of your listeners will know about the Purple Pound. So the spending power of disabled people is absolutely huge.
Yeah.
I think like $1.3 trillion worldwide every year. We're not just talking about disabled consumers, we're also talking about wider society. So many people appreciate and feel a connection to brands that are inclusive. The newer generation, Gen Z,
yes,
of course, they really appreciate to see inclusive advertising, regardless as to whether they have a disability or not. Most people are impacted by disability, whether it's themselves. As they all get older, they will probably acquire a disability along the way. Most people I speak to will have a family member or close friend with a disability. So it's not, what we try to say is that marketing, including a disabled person, isn't just reaching the disabled community, it's reaching everybody who appreciates inclusion.
Yes.
And everybody who has links to that community. So a huge business case. There's other things like perfection fatigue. We've seen it for many, many years, like these airbrushed perfect models, and the response to that now is just kind of fatigue. I'm bored of this. This isn't doing anything to me.
This is not me.
This is not me. How do I relate to that talent, that model? And then there's also active rebellion. These airbrushed images, we see them. That is not me. I am not going to buy from that brand. That is not representative. There's so many stats out there to kind of push for the business
Throw
case.
them around.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, I think a lot of the time there seems to be that lack of education and lack of information of the actual business case, but even of the actual like community and community size. Like sometimes when we share stats on our socials and things like that, and we talk about how the disabled community is the largest minority in the world. Absolutely. And people are like, no, that can't be true.
I know. Yeah.
Like, yes, it's 24% of the UK population. And you go to, like you were saying, the Purple Pound, or the representation on TV ads of disabled people, and actual, authentic representation. So I think, it's a lot of keep shouting about it and keep talking about it, which I think that's what we both are doing.
What we're both doing, yeah.
But yeah, hopefully, I mean, I am seeing that, change, and potentially positive change.
Yes.
And like you said, I think now Gen Z becoming consumers, I think they're a lot more aware, thankfully, because of social media. And, they express their opinions, and they'd be like, yeah, I'm not going to support this brand because they're not, first, maybe not just I'm not seeing myself represented, but like I don't see the world around me here. In terms of like specific brands that you are a big fan of, or brands that you think are doing a great job at creating inclusive campaigns, or catering to all types of people, do you have any like favorites there?
Yeah, well, in terms of fashion, I think Primark have done a fantastic job. So Primark look to have inclusion running through not just their campaigns, not just in front of camera, but also they love to work with disabled creatives as well. and they are really looking at their internal policies and procedures to kind of like ensure that they are being inclusive, and they continue to use talent as incidental casting. So if you go to any store, you will see, or in store you will see talent with disabilities, or on their website you will see disabled people. So I think they've done a really great job. Zalando work really, really well with the disabled community. They've got adaptive ranges. Their marketing is usually very, very inclusive. I think if you look at the tech brands, of course, in terms of accessibility of their actual products, they're moving things forward really, really well. Yeah. And then they're often like the Apples and the Samsungs of the world, their advertising is inclusive. So there's many great brands out there that are doing it well. But we know, like we kind of touched on it, but when we first launched, the stats were the representation of people within advertising was thought to be around 0.06%. And now the stats are, depending on where you look and who did the study, but maybe between 1% and 4%, somewhere in there. So obviously there's been a huge increase in the representation, like so many, it's really, really increased since 2017 when you first started. Yet, you just mentioned 24% of the population has a disability.
Yeah, so one is quite low.
Yeah, so there's a huge disconnect between the reality and where brands are. And I think even the brands that are doing it very, very well still aren't at the point of really great, authentic and regular representation. So we're still going to have to keep fighting to get to that point.
I think there's also... sometimes it's not about, trying to reach that perfection, but at least trying to do better. And I think listening to the community and understanding what your consumers want, because if brands actually listen to what their consumers want, they probably realise that they need to be changing the way they do certain things, whether that's in terms of representation, inclusion, accessibility.
Yes.
And I feel like there's that big issue and disconnect where they're making the choices without actually talking to their consumers and the people that are actually going to use their products and services.
Yeah.
In terms of like campaigns that you have worked on at Zebedee, do you have favourite ones?
Well, I always look back to the Gucci Beauty campaign because that was really a turning point for us as an agency. And that was with Ellie Goldstein. So she did a Gucci Beauty campaign. Well, at the time it was an editorial and we didn't really know kind of how it was going to pan out. You never know with editorials, like where it's going to go or what's going to happen. But that campaign went absolutely viral. Gucci put it on their Instagram. It remains Gucci's most liked Instagram post ever, near enough 1 million likes. Wow. So, and for me, I'm kind of like, if that doesn't prove that consumers are ready for this, I don't know what else I need to do, because 1 million likes isn't nothing. So that's been a brilliant one. And I always, and this isn't fashion or, but because I had babies when I first started the agency, at that time, I just thought, we'll never see babies on nappy packaging with a disability. Do you know, like, it just seemed unachievable. But we do. We have babies with disabilities on nappies, we have them on baby wipes, and for me to see, it just means so much to people who maybe have had a baby with a disability, to feel like it's such less of a lonely place, to feel included. It just was really great for me to see that.
And I think we see that those videos sometimes go viral. I remember when I think it was The Little Mermaid, when the film, the live action came out, and it came out that I think her name is Hailey Bailey.
Oh yeah.
The actress was playing Ariel.
Yes.
Ariel.
I know My Little Mermaid.
And there were thousands and thousands of videos of little girls and kids being like, oh, she looks like me.
Yes.
And everyone was like loving it, and it was like, it's there.
Yes.
Like, you can see what representation can do.
Yeah.
And that's obviously like a tiny example, but it's just like people are aware of it and know that it's good, but sometimes it's like that next step that where people fail to.
Disney do a great job actually inclusion. Like we had one of our talent, Noah, as one of the Lost Boys in the new Peter Pan movie, and he's got Down syndrome, and I will put my money on it that he is the best actor in, you know, like his casting was absolutely perfect and he did an absolutely brilliant job. Like, sorry Jude Law, Noah was way better, and I think that's just fantastic to see one of the Lost Boys have Down syndrome. What an amazing thing, you know, like how far we've progressed, you know, to have that. We also, like in the film Luca, sorry, I do have kids, so I do know all the Disney films. One of our talent, Kayla, talked about this, but she's got a limb difference, and there's a character in Luca who has a limb difference. It's not part of the story, it's just part of who he is, and I just thought that was a brilliant example of kind of incidental casting. Well, it wasn't, it was, you know, it was an animation, but you know, incidental character portrayal that was absolutely brilliant.
Yes, and I think we're starting to see a bit more of that, where disabled characters are not just a disabled character, they're just a character that they're a great actor and happen to be chosen, and that's it.
Yes,
I think something like Sex Education have done a great job at incidental representation. We've talked about it in the podcast before, but I love it, and I think they've done a great job with a few different characters, whether that is from like gender, disability. I think it's great, and it's a great example of just like how to do it in an authentic way.
Yes, well, because I think this is a conversation around a client's fear of tokenism, isn't it? You know, like, am I being tokenistic? But I always say, if a disabled person uses that product, then why not be, you know, advertising that product? That isn't tokenistic. That's just incidental. That is just, you know, part of life, part of the world that we live in. And it really irritates me, the excuse about tokenism. Like people, I'm concerned about being tokenistic. It's like, well, you have to start somewhere. You have to start working with diverse communities, or else you've been completely exclusive, which in my mind is worse, you know, than the fear. It's not even like that you will be called out as tokenistic, the fear of being called out as tokenistic. And just speak to, it isn't hard. Speak to the community, do your market research, get it right, and then you won't be called out as tokenistic. It's
we talked about that all the time.
But we love, at Zebedee, we love incidental casting, because the way that we work is we put our guys forward for every single brief that they fit the brief for, regardless of disability. And we did that originally out of, we had to, because there weren't any roles being written for disabled people. So, and you know, like we couldn't just sit around and wait for these roles to come through, because they weren't going to. So we had to, and we felt like that's equality. Like that's, you know, they need to be able to access these opportunities. So we'll always put our guys forward for every single role that they fit the brief for. So more often than not, when you see our talent, it is incidental casting, which we love.
I want to talk about your documentary. Kind of like, how was the experience? How was the kind of like the perceptions that people got after it from your perspective? Are you happy with like what people got from it? How was like the whole thing? I feel like I was thinking when I was watching it, I was like, how did it feel to be doing your everyday job and then there's a camera just in front of you following you around? Yeah,
so it was really, really fun, but it also was really, really bizarre as well. I think, because clearly there was cameras on it. They weren't with us all the time. We had days where we knew that they were going to be coming up to see us. I think they filmed probably like about 1,000 hours more than they required from us. Like when you see kind of how much the team were in the documentary, but it was really, really fun process. The talent who were involved in it really, really enjoyed it. I think they were really pleased to be involved. And I think the main thing that's come from it is that it has opened up conversations around representation, and hopefully people will continue to have those conversations. It's a talking point. And I think the talent came across brilliantly. They're all really great people, and hopefully we didn't come across too badly either.
No. But it was interesting also to see kind of like the ups and downs of the industry. You know, it's a hard industry. The fashion industry is very hard, and being a model, I mean, I assume is pretty hard.
Yeah.
So I quite enjoy seeing that, and also I loved how everyone was so just like confident. I was like, I'm going to take over the world.
Yes.
And I enjoy that a lot.
Well, most of the people, it's really interesting actually, because many of the people that apply that might have acquired a disability, they've said that, well, Dan, for example, who was in the documentary, he said acquiring his disability was one of the best things that's ever happened to him, because it's opened so many doors. Like, he was in a tricky place with his mental health, and it's helps him through his mental health struggles, and having the opportunity to work as a model, as talent, and all the people that he's met and all the opportunities that he's had, he's he thinks it's the best thing that's ever happened to him.
Yeah, I mean, obviously within the disabled community there's a lot of nuance, and people have different relationships with their disabilities. Like you said, some people acquire it later on, some people are born with it, so that's all they know. But yeah, I think that was interesting to see. And obviously you have like different type of talents, so you not just have disabled people.
Yeah. So we represent, we launched, clearly our focus was disability, but then we start to get applications from people who had visible differences, so maybe people who have scarring, alopecia, vitiligo, albinism, and we felt, because everything we did was about inclusion and allowing for opportunities, we felt really uncomfortable saying that, you know, that you don't fit what we do. So we made the decision to be inclusive in terms of visible difference. And then the same was said for gender as well, for the trans and non-binary community. We started to receive applications from that community, and it just really made sense for us to try and advocate for that community as well. And as I talked about intersectionality, like, we have people who fit into all three of those characteristics. So yeah, we're really proud. And something that we're really proud of as well, of course, like, this is our focus, but we take all areas of diversity really seriously. Like, we want to have really diverse books of varying different ethnicities, backgrounds, sizes, heights. And we're really proud. If you look on our website, it's so many diverse faces. Whereas if you go look at maybe a typical agency, everyone is very, very, there's the industry standards, aren't there? So everyone is very, very similar, but we just take those industry standards and throw them in the bin.
What are kind of the plans that you have for the near future that you can talk about?
What are our plans for the near future? I don't know. Continue what we're doing. I've always said, like, I will not stop until representation is where it needs to be. So I'm going to keep going. We're always going to keep going, but I want to see representation continue to improve, to get closer to that 24% of, the population. I want representation in media to look like that. We have a creatives division as well. So we want to see more people with disabilities involved in the creative process, whether it be at the point of writing the campaigns or on set whilst they're producing the campaigns. So that's a really important part of where we want to be. We want to continue fighting as hard as we can to get representation at the fashion weeks around the world to look more inclusive. It's very, very hard, but we'll continue to do that. And we never know what we're going to get in, day out. So we'll keep offering the best service we can to the clients that we get through the door. and keep educating along the way.
Yeah, you're doing a great job.
Thank you very much.
In terms of the actual fashion industry, what are kind of your ideal future of where the fashion industry is going to get to, or how does an inclusive fashion industry look like?
So there's many areas to talk about here, because it's not just, obviously our focus is in front of the camera, and it's the representation in front of camera. Clearly fashion is not where it needs to be. The high street's doing much better than luxury, so I'd love to see luxury getting it and moving forward with representation. We do speak to many luxury brands, and they are doing what they can in terms of their recruitment and their policies to be more inclusive in their organisation, but it's not necessarily filtering through to in front of camera. So there is something that we'll have to continue working with luxury to see if we can get there. I'd love to see that happen. I'd love for people to think about how to represent maybe some of the less visible disabilities. Think about creative ways to do that. Perhaps it means there's going to be more of a focus on socials and creators who are able to kind of talk about their stories and their relationship to disability, as well as working with brands and moving forward in that way. I just love to see things improve in terms of representation.
Hopefully they will.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's still a long way to go. But also we need to look at, where we were and where we are now.
Yeah.
And progress has been made.
Yeah.
Slow progress, but
No, it's huge. It is slow progress, but actually it's huge, because if you look at 0.06% in 2017 to between 1 and 4, I don't know the maths, but that's loads and loads more percentages than what it was. Yeah.
Kind of like to wrap it up, I wanted to ask you about models and any advice that you have for any aspiring models who think the industry is not for them, who have a disability or just maybe don't see themselves represented in fashion campaigns, or comparing themselves to other models. They just don't see like they fit in.
Well, I think taking it broader than that, I think like anybody should consider this. Like there's many people who we've kind of scouted or just heard who've kind of fell into it rather than like thinking that this is something that they want to do. So first of all, like consider it, and if you are thinking about it, then get in touch. Like go onto our website at Zebedee and just have a little look. So one of the main things to think about is like, it isn't all, like as the documentary show, it's not all kind of glamour. It can be hard work. It's very last minute. It's very fast paced. Do you have the family and support around you to kind of ensure that this can be a successful career for you, like whether it's emotionally or in terms of practical things? Unfortunately, it's very, very London-centric or globally. It's like you need to be in one of those big hubs like New York, LA, London, or able to travel quite easily. There's so many restrictions just as society to not make this easy for disabled people. So it's kind of like do what you can, work with who you can to kind of make this work for you. I think it's really important to like work on perhaps get like acting lessons or feel like confidence, your ability to take direction, feel confident in front of camera, do shoots with like editorial shoots or test shoots to kind of build your confidence, get a really nice portfolio. But just continue with your aspirations. Like you can do it. You can achieve it if you want to achieve it, and absolutely get in touch and we'll try and help you along the way.
Nice. Is there anything else that you'd like to mention?
I don't think so. I think like really, really thank you for having me here today, and well done for all the work that you guys are doing, because I think like we wouldn't be where we are today without organisations like yourselves doing the work that you're doing. And And just a call out to all brands, like, you have to start doing this. You know, you have to start being inclusive. You have to take that first step. And it isn't that difficult. You might have concerns and fears around it, but it isn't difficult. Like, you can meet the needs of your disabled talent. We will hold your hand to do that. So yeah, just do it.
Yes, sometimes that fear kind of stops people from doing it. And just saying, like, don't worry, you don't have to be perfect, you don't have to know everything.
Exactly.
It's a process, and just being open to that, it's a great first step.
Yeah, we're constantly still learning, you know, like, we love being allies, but we need to learn more, you know, like, every day. Disability is so diverse, and there's so much to learn. Like, even that, like, modern tech, there's so much tech out there that we need to learn about. Yeah, there's just so much that you can learn, but we're all in this together, so we can all learn together and hold each other's hands along the way.
Yes, I was going to be like. Well, thank you so much, Laura. It's been great. And thanks everyone for listening, watching, wherever you've listening or watching to this. And thanks to RD Studios, which you might recognise the background already. Great space. We love you guys. And yeah, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you very soon.